I'm very honored and I'm very happy to address the distinguished participants of this webinar. I do research on maritime security in the Indo-Pacific, and I also participate in the ASEAN meetings. And for 2026, the Philippines is the chair of ASEAN. So I would like to start my presentation. The title of my presentation is Prepared, Not Paralyzed: How Underwater Domain Awareness Framework Addresses ASEAN's Water Challenges. So here we take note of the leadership of the Maritime Research Center in promoting a greater understanding and awareness of the underwater domain awareness framework in the Indo-Pacific. So the outline of my presentation is as follows. First, I will describe ASEAN and the ASEAN action plans on disaster response, water management, and fisheries. The second aspect is I will tackle the geopolitics, and my main conclusion is that the decisive context of the next decade will be solved by persuasion, not coercion. And then I will proceed to highlight three ASEAN heroes that are well known in our region: Jose Rizal from the Philippines, Prince Depanagara of Indonesia, and King Bumibol Adulyadej of Thailand. Following the guidance of Commander Dr. Arnab Das, I will also highlight ASEAN's water challenges and the solutions that the underwater domain awareness framework can present as distinct solutions. And finally, as the key takeaways of my presentation, I will unite the contribution of the three ASEAN heroes and transpose the principle into the underwater domain awareness framework. So I begin my presentation. ASEAN is composed of 11 countries in the Indo-Pacific, and recently Timor-Leste was admitted as a new member. ASEAN has a total of 655 million population, constituting 9% of the total world's population. It is also the fourth largest economic bloc after the European Union, North America, and China with Hong Kong. It is the fourth largest exporting region in the world, with a collective gross domestic product of 4.13 trillion US dollars. ASEAN has a strong middle class, and it is a strong manufacturing base for electric vehicles, among others. ASEAN is also a major recipient of foreign direct investment, constituting 17% of the total foreign direct investment. For example, if you look at ASEAN, Thailand focuses on automotive parts. Singapore is a major exporter of electronics. I was giving an overview of ASEAN. As I've said, Thailand leads in automotive parts. The Philippines leads in the export of manpower, sending 15 million Filipinos abroad. And in terms of domestic consumption, ASEAN will register $4 trillion by 2031. And in the ASEAN region, it has an average annual growth rate of above 5%. And ASEAN's primary trading partner is China, and Japan is its second largest trading partner. Now let us look at ASEAN's action plans. ASEAN has very detailed action plans on disaster management and emergency response framework. For example, the ASEAN Agreement on Disaster Management and Emergency Response focuses on 4 aspects. The first is the One ASEAN response. The second is disaster risk identification and assessment. The third is prevention, mitigation, and preparedness. The fourth is emergency response, rehabilitation, and recovery. Moreover, ASEAN maintains a stockpile of goods for rapid distribution in case of emergencies and natural disasters. The second action plan of ASEAN is responsible fisheries for Southeast Asia. Now again, it adopts a fourfold approach. The first is combating illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. The second is harmonizing standards on fisheries across the 12 countries. The third is the promotion of food safety and security. And the fourth is the implementation of the Southeast Asian Fisheries Development Center. ASEAN also has a distinctive water management framework, and it even implements strategic plans on water resources management for surface water as well as groundwater. It has 4 aims. The first is to coordinate the supply and demand allocation of water. The second is focusing on water quality and sanitation. The third is climate change and extreme events. And the fourth is fostering governance and capacity building. Recently, in the meetings that we had in ASEAN, the focus is on strengthening adaptation to drought and strengthening adaptation to floods. Currently, Vietnam, specifically Nha Trang City, is flooded. And just 3 weeks ago, Manila and several parts of the Philippines were also flooded due to 2 super typhoons that hit the country. So, ASEAN has to focus on anticipatory action on disaster management because we have to contend with the monsoon season and the typhoon season, which covers 8 months out of 12 months annually. And also, when it comes to marine water quality management in coastal and marine environments, ASEAN also needs help from the Underwater Domain Awareness Framework in terms of A, monitoring, B, capacity building, and C, regional cooperation. Now we go to the next slide on geopolitics. Due to the threat from China, many of the Southeast Asian countries has already increased defense spending. So for 2024, Brunei registered 3.8% of their gross domestic product, focusing on military expenditures. This was followed by Cambodia, which set aside 2.76% of their gross domestic product for defense expenditures. Myanmar registered the highest at 4% of gross domestic product. Singapore maintains a regular 2.5% of their gross domestic product, focusing on military expenditures. As for the other countries, the average percentage of their gross domestic product hovers between 1.5% to 2% of the GDP. Now, so there is an arms purchasing for Southeast Asia. And even Malaysia, the Philippines will be buying submarines this year, and also fighter jets. So those are the trend now. The idea is that although diplomacy is the main tool that is being used in the Indo-Pacific, each country also invests in defense products. And the Philippines is the one that prefers Indian missiles and Indian defense products. So the idea is to reinforce capability at the same time focusing on deterrence. So soft power paired with deterrence is emerging as the optimal strategy in ASEAN. Moreover, our neighbors, closest neighbors, South Korea and Japan, uses soft power aside from having military might. So in the coming 5 years, the trend for increasing military expenditures in undersea technologies will also increase, because in the recent ASEAN meeting last week, the discussions focused on undersea warfare. And I think that India can help ASEAN also in that aspect. Now I will present 3 ASEAN heroes that are well known in the region and their contribution. We start with Jose Rizal of the Philippines. We go to the next slide. So our national hero, Jose Rizal, is a well-known hero in Southeast Asia. Once there was this anecdote that he went boating with his friends, and then his slipper fell into the river. He then decided to throw his other slipper into the river so that if another child were to find his slipper, he can use both slippers. So here, this anecdote shows that Rizal cares for the others. The second is on his focus on health and well-being of the others. Rizal studied ophthalmology in Europe so that one day he can operate on his mother. So he performed cataract surgery in Hong Kong on his mother in 1891, restoring her vision. This operation was the first of its kind during that era. Another trait of Rizal is service to the poor. So the next slide, we will show his service to the poor. During his exile in Dapitan, Philippines, he was exiled by the Spanish administration at the time. He wrote a letter to his close friend, Ferdinand Blumentritt, the Austrian Philippinist. He described his morning routine. I have many fruit trees, mangoes, lanzones, guayabanos, baluno, nangka. I have rabbits, dogs, cats. I rise early at 5 a.m., visit my plants, feed the chickens, awaken my people, and put them in movement. At 7:30, we breakfast with tea, pastries, cheese, and sweetmeats. Later, I treat my poor patients who come to my land. I dress, I go to the town in my canoe, treat the people there, and return at 12 when my luncheon awaits me. So here, Rizal, the national hero, serves the poor. Then we go to Indonesia, the hero of Indonesia. We go to the next slide, Prince Dipanagara, or in Bahasa, Pangeran Dipanagara. Prince Dipanagara was born Bendara Raden Mas Mustahar and was born to the Yogyakarta Kraton. The Kraton is a village on the 11th of November 1785, just before sunrise. So according to Javanese chronology, his date of birth was auspicious because it fell on the Javanese month of Sura, the first of the Javanese year, when traditionally new kingdoms are founded and new historical cycles begin. This day is significant also in Javanese almanac literature because the combination of the day of the week and that of the 5-day Javanese market week is said to indicate a person of great fluency and power of speech, generosity of heart, and the character of a sage. And then we continue on the next slide, where we explore Prince Depanagara's prophecy, gift, and warrior spirit. The gift of prophecy. So when Prince Dipanagara was presented to Sultan Mangkubumi by his mother, the aging ruler had foretold that he would cause the Dutch greater destruction than his forebear, than what Sultan Mangkubumi did during the Gayanti War, but that only the Almighty knew the outcome. This prince also have the gift of reading character. He was raised by the female members of the household until the age of 18. Hence, his sensitivity and intuition manifested in his gift for the reading of character through the study of facial expression, what we call in Javanese as ngelmo firasat, as well as his physical resilience was evident. The third characteristic of the prince is that he has a warrior spirit. He led the Java War from 1825 to 1830, which was the bloodiest colonial conflict the Dutch ever faced in the Indonesian archipelago. His war of resistance was sparked by deep-seated Javanese resentment toward Dutch colonial rule, which involved political interference, economic exploitation, and a lack of respect for local customs. So up to today, this prince is well known among the Indonesians as well as the citizens of the Indo-Pacific. We go to the third ASEAN hero, King Bhumibol of Thailand. So King Bhumibol of Thailand is well-revered, a well-revered king not only in Thailand but in the whole Indo-Pacific. In 1992, there was a military coup that toppled the Thai civilian government, resulting in protests that were met with violence, and many Thai demonstrators died. So the king intervened and he summoned General Suchinda and the opposition leader Chamlong to a televised meeting. In that meeting, the king called for violence to end. The following day, Suchinda resigned and a caretaker government was installed until new elections can be held. So peace prevailed over the land. So here we see that King Bhumibol was a symbol of unity and the national survival of Thailand. Next, we go to the second trait of the king. Next slide. King Bhumibol is also known as the development king. He initiated more than 4,000 royal development projects all over his kingdom, focusing on agriculture, water management, public health, and education, particularly for the rural poor. If the king were alive today, I'm sure he would appreciate the underwater domain awareness framework because the UDA can solve many of the problems in agriculture, in water management, in public health, and education, focusing on the poor. The third trait of this ASEAN hero is that he is known to be an accessible monarch. He did what the Masters in Business Administration students would learn. He did management by walking around. So unlike the previous monarchs, the king would travel extensively throughout Thailand, visiting farmers, fishermen, and promoted technology. He listened to the problems of the villages, the problems of simple people, and he promoted the increase in income. He helped them find practical solutions. He would bring medical teams with him and encourage people to speak with him directly, fostering a strong personal connection. Now we go to the water challenges of ASEAN. We go to the next slide. So ASEAN has several water challenges. If we focus on the Mekong River, there are more than 50 publications that highlight the plethora of problems faced by several countries where the Mekong River traverses. The most recent serious problem that they have is arsenic contamination. So the Thailand water body already alerted ASEAN that there is arsenic contamination in the Mekong River traversing the Thai boundaries. And they have reached out to Laos and Cambodia and even Myanmar on how to solve this arsenic contamination. Now, if we look at the other countries, Thailand also faces a serious problem of drinking water. In a study done by their water management district, focusing on the Thai border, they found out that the drinking water consumed by young people, particularly high school students, has a high level of arsenic, a high level of coliform bacteria, and more than acceptable levels of chlorine. So these are the three main problems that the Thai government is addressing at this point. And I think that the underwater domain awareness technologies can address these existing problems. Another problem in an ASEAN country like Cambodia is the problem of governance, the weak governance enforcement mechanism that leads to poor water management. Unlike the other countries, Cambodia has an abundant rainfall, more than enough that they need. However, because of the weak governance, the weak systems, both government and non-government institutions, they are unable to implement a detailed water management system, resulting in shortage of water. Another problem in the Philippines is the problem of inefficient government-regulated water utilities or water companies. Because of the inefficiency of the government-regulated water utility companies, there is a need for residents to buy private water. They buy water from private water companies. And these private water companies sell at a higher rate, a more expensive price for water to be consumed and a lower quality of water. So this problem persists, and the government tries to solve this existing problem. Another problem in the Mekong River is the massive hydropower projects that led to sedimentation, resulting in the lack of nutrients of the soils where the Mekong River passes. Therefore, it has affected local communities that carry out livelihood projects near coastal areas. Another problem in Singapore is that they have limited water, so they buy from Malaysia. So Singapore manages their water problem through the adoption of high technology, and at the same time, they go for long-term water contracts with Malaysia to sustain their water supply. Now, for Malaysia, again, their problem is scarcity of water. And if you look at the boom of the data center in Johor, there is now a competition between the demand for water supply by the local residents of Johor and the demand of water supply of the data center industry that is responsible for the economic growth of Johor. And recently, just 2 days ago, the state government of Johor informed the data center industry that they have to wait for additional water supply in mid-2027 because the local population is already rallying against the government for the disruptions in the water supply. There is a serious competition between local residents and the industry of the data center. So now the data centers are in a bind because they have invested billions of dollars and there is no water in that area. So these are the serious problems faced by the Indo-Pacific and the ASEAN with respect to water. Now we go to the next slide. So the underwater domain awareness framework can really help ASEAN's water challenges. First, the UDA framework is supported by indigenous technologies that were developed by India's engineers and experts, foremost of which is the Maritime Research Center. Then the UDA framework is holistic. Another interesting aspect is that it can be replicated in several situations, environments, coastal communities, as well as inland waterways. The UDA framework is also evidence-based, and I'm sure that in the past presentations, you have listened to the scientists and the experts of the Maritime Research Center on the different applications of underwater domain awareness framework. And most importantly, the UDA framework supports close engagement with local communities. And this is the essence of ASEAN, the kinship, the close regional cooperation, the bonding together, the peaceful collaboration among countries in ASEAN. It is consensus-based. Everything comes in through suggestion. And there is a strong openness for external, extra-regional partners like India. As a matter of fact, when I addressed the ASEAN during the Lone Wolf Terrorism Conference last June 2025, hosted by the ASEAN chair then, Malaysia, during the open forum, I talked about the problem of lone wolf terrorism in the Philippines. During the open forum, one of the participants asked me, did the Philippines reach out to India for assistance in addressing the problems of lone wolf terrorism. So by that question, in a regional security forum, I can already gauge that there is a very high respect for India within ASEAN. And just last month, our president already highlighted when he accepted the chairmanship of ASEAN for 2026. He already said that ASEAN has to work together with India on maritime cooperation and maritime security cooperation because of the strength of the Indian economy as well as India's respect for the rule of law. So that was the first key speech given by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. And now I will try to combine the key takeaways for my lecture, the ASEAN heroes and the UDA framework. We go to the next slide. So I started with Jose Rizal of the Philippines, where he shared his slippers when it fell off the river, reflecting his care for the others. His expertise in medicine was done because he wanted to focus on the health and well-being not only of his mother, but also of the poor Filipinos. And his mastery of different fields were primarily for the benefit of others. Now, the second ASEAN hero, Prince Dipanagara of Java, had the gift of foresight. He had the gift of prophecy. He could read facial expressions. And he possessed the warrior ethos and spirit necessary in order for Indonesia to start its rebellion against the colonial masters, the Dutch. And with that, he embodies the national resilience of Indonesians until today. The third ASEAN hero is King Bhumibol of Thailand. His efforts in promoting peace, in stopping coup d'etat, centered on his love for unity and the national survival of Thailand. He was known as the Development King, and his son, the current king, is also following in his footsteps. He is known as an accessible monarch, or he carries out management by walking around. So these are heroes. And when we think of heroes, we think they belong to the past. But actually, these ASEAN heroes are very much ingrained in modern day thinking, as well as in modern day conceptual framework among ASEAN members. And we go to my conclusion, the key takeaways, the next slide, on how the underwater domain awareness framework reflects the ASEAN way. So when Jose Rizal imparted care for the others, it reflected the importance of capacity building for the underwater domain awareness. His focus on health and well-being is similar to the underwater domain awareness, which promotes safe water and therefore good health of citizens and residents of coastal communities. His service to the poor, his expertise, not only in medicine, but in philosophy, in theology, in languages. He can speak 27 languages. All of that, he put it at the service for the others, particularly for the poor. The underwater domain awareness framework is also multidisciplinary, and its development, its progress, its continuity is there because it serves local communities. And you can read in the Maritime Research Center website several case studies of how the underwater domain awareness helps local communities and uplifts their livelihood as well as their income. The second ASEAN hero is Prince Dipanagara, who has this gift of foresight. And that foresight can be reflected in the underwater domain awareness modeling. Because the underwater domain awareness modeling aspect is able to have that gift of prophecy. His warrior spirit, the warrior spirit of Prince Dipanagara, also reflects the importance of continuous improvement as well as the forecasting capability of the UDA framework. His national resilience, reflection of the national resilience of Prince Dipanagara, also is reflected in the national resilience being propagated by the underwater domain awareness framework. Because all these technologies, all these systems, the effect is to make sure that they are stable communities in any region in the world. The third is for King Bumibol Adulyadej, the unity in national survival of Thailand. So when the underwater domain awareness is applied to ASEAN's water challenges, the UDA is cohesive and fosters the survival of ASEAN and therefore the survival of the Indo-Pacific. The second point of King Bumibol is he is a development king. Now, the UDA framework is scientific and it is also data-driven. At the same time, it is open to insights, inputs, suggestions from different majority of stakeholders. So it's input-driven, it is data-driven. So once all these inputs are included in the mathematical models, then it promotes development in the end. And the third is that King Bumibol is known as the accessible monarch. The underwater domain awareness framework is compatible with artificial intelligence as well as analytics. So this kind of modern day tweaking and modern day continuous improvement is able to make this technology accessible to all. There are many ways, and the Maritime Research Center enables that we engage with communities in order for them to discover and to maximize the UDA framework in their respective localities using the nuances that each particular ASEAN country has and possesses. And the UDA framework also respects the local culture, the local customs and practices of each ASEAN country. So those are the UDA models are also able to anticipate water shortages, to give various alternatives to stakeholders, and it can even carry out water programming for ASEAN countries that experience scarcity, arsenic contamination. So the UDA can develop water resilience models. It can predict water consumption in the coming months, and it's both the residents, the commercial, and the industrial uses. And also, the UDA framework can be used to improve the drinking water quality of the entire ASEAN region. And with the artificial intelligence tools applied to the UDA framework, then monitoring can be done more efficiently, resulting in more efficient water companies, more efficient water providers, and more efficient government water utilities. So for me, as an ASEAN analyst, the user domain awareness connects with the heritage of ASEAN, the heritage as exemplified by these three ASEAN heroes in the past: Jose Rizal, Prince Dipanagara, and King Bhumibol of Thailand. Thank you very much.